You could teach your kids about weather modification at an early age with the HARP playset from Mattel, and this lovely playset that the boy is sitting down amongst all of the aerial arrays. Yeah, I do love this one. Disclaimer. The Made You Think show is a show about memes for entertainment purposes only, not for figuring out the truth about real world technology or the motives and actions of advanced ruling class alien overlords. Viewer discretion extremely advised. So, we start off with the truth. Just looking at it, the truth is coming from all perspectives, but what is true can be this part and that part, obviously. First of all, this is a heavy duty show. I have no idea exactly how Jews are modifying the weather. Am I allowed to say Jews? If my mom had a bat mitzvah and her mom had a bat mitzvah, back to the old country of Ukraine and on to pre recorded history. Anyway, oops. Uh, so, when you have everyone's attention and forget where your story was going. Anyway, one of the first red pill moments I had back in 2008 was when I showed up and found the Corbett Report, covering many holes in the standard climate change narrative. This is, when people were still big on the whole idea and calling it global warming. And I was too, because I totally watched An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore, or I would say featuring Al Gore, and I thought that that was all accurate. But not so accurate. Oh, it's really about the narrative, and I think this George Orwell quote covers it very clearly. The person who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past. That's a very simple thing. This goes back to one of the more recent presentations by James Corbett on thecorbettreport.com. This is July 13th, 2017, going over Orwell's nightmare, temperature adjustments, and climate change. Yeah, that by that point of 2017, they had changed to climate change. So going into the narrative, I need to slow down here. The narrative was man-made global warming comes from everyone using cars and all of these things adjusting the carbon dioxide levels, and that's the major pollutant to focus on is carbon dioxide, as if that's actually a pollutant. It's not. And I just bought that until the internet became more widely available to me. I could look stuff up. When I moved here to Hawaii, and now I can look up with high-speed internet. That's how I found the Corbett Report. That's how I started questioning things. I started looking into, wonder what's going on. There's a lot of resources that you could look into nowadays on this topic of climate hysteria. A recent one I found is Lucy Biggers over on TikTok and other platforms. She is also posted over on the Free Press. I'm going to throw her link in here. Very important. She's a former climate hysteria activist turned climate realist. And also for the nitty gritty, definitely go to Tony Heller on Odyssey. You can check him out over at realclimatescience.com. It's thorough, looking at real evidence. And anyway, that's not for true believers. The climate issue of the climate change, of man-made global warming turned climate change, that's one side of it. But there's another side to climate hysteria, covering up all of the oodles of evidence to support the reality of weather modification. So, before we get into all of this, and cue the John Williams song here, list of geoengineering patents from 1891 to 2023. Ta-da! Through all of that. So, that's just all of the known patents. Then there's the lesser known things, but you have real applications of things that have changed the weather from the first moment when tribes were learning how to essentially bend and change and manipulate the atmosphere. That goes back a long time. I know that the Dowsers Convention in Vermont had large aspects of that going on in their thing, but people using metallurgy to change the climate in the same way as they use metals like acupuncture needles to change the bioenergies of a person, or when you do a veterinarian acupuncture on animals. I know this. I'm an acupuncturist. But here's the deal. Wilhelm Reich, okay? This is one of the known technologies. This geoengineering, that big list that doesn't even touch on the known technology designed and used by Wilhelm Reich. These are called cloudbusters. And if you really want to know a lot more, the verifiable applications of cloudbusters can be found by looking at the work of the late Dr. James DeMeo of the Oregon Biophysical Research Laboratory. Let's start at the beginning. Sometimes it's hard to open your hand, but you need to, and it shows the guy holding onto one branch, saving his life. He's on the edge, basically hanging from the branch over apparently an abyss, and in his other hand is a bag called pride. And this is the thing that I see people just hold on to, that they just would rather die seemingly than acknowledge error, potential error, active errors, and the past errors of experience. I think acknowledging error and letting go of pride just is what strength is all about. Some people are not so teachable. Are you a corruption denier? Do you believe everything the government, media, pharma complex tells you without thinking? Do alternative viewpoints make you angry? Do you lash out angrily if someone raises the possibility that you've been duped by authorities? Do you often dismiss new information as conspiracy theory to feel better about your familiar worldview? If so, you may be a corruption denier. Please consult your nearest conspiracy theorist for instruction on deprogramming. I love that one. You look at people who are exposed to this kind of information, the Made You Think show is not for everyone. And I could see that they'd be looking like Zod and the other Kryptonians trapped in that two-dimensional square that's floating around. People trapped in a false reality of lies and illusions, looking at you like Zod and company. That's just that's just the way it is, because they need to be right. The government means well for you. Media tells you the truth, and Big Pharma wants you healthy. And other fairy tales for naive adults. So that's kind of the primer book that apparently a lot of the folks who are not this audience are reading. And you guys are interested in other stuff, but I just wanted to poke at the normies who build self-esteem on keeping the same conclusions intact. And now on with the show about weather modification. So some people say that we're looking at SBX1 or the ice scat. There's also the stratospheric aerosols, that's the known visible spraying. HARP, that's the High Active Auroral Research Project. I might be butchering that, but HAARP. Those are the weather modification things like the ice cube neutrino detector in Antarctica, and all of those things creating effects such as, the known weather modifications, these visible trails in the sky that you see all across the mainland USA. Grateful, by the way, for folks who are visiting Big Island of Hawaii. You can visit here on vacation and you will not see much of this action at all. You just won't see it very much. I can count on one hand, probably like 3 times maybe, the number of times I've seen this type of weird aerosol spraying or persistent contrails, going over. So, yeah, chemtrails ain't real. Oh, yeah? Well, what about this guy who's tight walking one of them? Is climate engineering real? Are square clouds normal? It's not necessarily the aerial spraying seen by countless people nowadays, but there's also the flooding effects, like in recent times in Texas. Obviously, with the Texas floods, July 2025, Central Texas, they were reported to acknowledge cloud seeding programs ahead of time. I had my AI write up about this, and it's for sure flexed its muscle to try to push back and say, well, there's no evidence that the cloud seeding caused that. Well, okay. So a lot of storm damage and flooding, and who knows what is caused by what. We have the devastated areas of North Carolina and Appalachia. That's, I believe, 2024. I think it was just last year, all in this potential luscious lithium mining area that is become widely depopulated now that basically those storms ripped out all of the lowland communities there. I'm not making any claims. I'm just asking for all of you peeps to look deeper. Just look deeper at this topic. So, the more easily you get offended, the less intelligent you actually are. Don't mean to be actually insulting. I think that it's important to say if you are getting offended at any of this, such as the mention of the weather or of a certain religion that I mentioned the show at the beginning with, a religion that, by the way, huge part of my whole family lineage came from. So I can talk all about it if I want to. I'm just saying, the more you get offended by something, it means that you're straying into the realm of less intelligence and into the realm of automatic emotional response. And that is not a place for a solid person. Ask any martial artist, they're very calm. They do not use anger, they use their calmness to win. The person who indulges in their anger usually loses. That's usually an amateur move. So it's the same with the real life. Now, same with this guy, I feel like I'm the guy on the side of the river saying, guys, watch out for the waterfall. And this guy saying, fucking conspiracy theorist, where's your tinfoil hat? And this quote I get on the internet too often, source. The person just wants me to do their homework and provide their source instead of them looking up their own work. It's ridiculous, but that's the way it goes. They have a strong computer and they want me to do their homework and look stuff up instead of them doing it. The victim of mind manipulation does not know that he is a victim. To him, the walls of his prison are invisible and he believes himself to be free. That's Aldous Huxley. It's important. And obviously, the customers who bought this item, they believed fully in the 9/11 Commission report, also bought into COVID and climate hysteria and everything about Israel and the necessity for the Ukraine war. They bought those same items. I think it's time to get comfortable with saying, thanks for correcting me. I didn't know that. And I hadn't thought of it like that. I understand now. I was wrong about that, and I've changed my mind. I should do some more research before I argue this point. There's no shame in being wrong, only refusing to learn. That is shameful. And so, you could teach your kids about weather modification at an early age with the HARP playset from Mattel and this lovely playset that the boy is sitting down amongst all of the aerial arrays. Yeah, I do love this one. So, all of the NPCs out there, the weather cannot be weaponized. And that's their mantra that they will keep saying, while at the same time saying man-made climate change is real. The usual suspect, the climate mafia. Climate change, as we've been led to believe, is simply an organized crime syndicate operating under the guise of terms like sustainable development, smart growth, and build back better. And who knows what the next slogan that they're going to roll out is going to be. So, we have obviously fabricated data and actual data. The climate change hoax. Climate change isn't a crisis, it's a business model. The narrative has been weaponized to push carbon credits, green taxes, and endless, quote, solutions that enrich the few and burden the many. Behind every doomsday headline is an economic or political motive. The goal was never to save the planet, it was to sell you fear, restrict your choices, and enforce compliance under the illusion of moral responsibility. The mainstream media doesn't report news. It manufactures consent. Owned by a handful of corporations, it doesn't inform the public. It shapes perception to serve power. Stories are framed, facts are filtered, and dissenting voices are erased. The goal isn't to keep you informed, it's to keep you aligned. not with the truth, but with the approved version of it. Now, take a moment in the show to remember the credo of Made You Think memes to help your life be more wonderful. This is a perfect example. Just focus on your center, what you have power over, your own actions and reactions, your choices, what you focus on, what thoughts you dwell on, all of your conscious choices. And then you can move to a little bit, once you get all of that settled, you can consider, what do you have influence over? And you have profound influence over your own health, but you have influence over your family's health and how your friends are doing and your relationships with your friends, your finances, your romantic partnerships, your success, your future. You have serious influence over that. And then the outer circle of concerns, that's what I speculate about, and I encourage a strong mind and strong heart to think wide and deep on this heavy stuff, stuff like weather modification and the impacts from theoretical technology that can possibly whip up hurricanes and rainstorms, blizzards, and become maybe a serious liability for anyone in the way of these horrible disasters. By the way, this does include the weirdness of fires, like in Paradise, California, like recent fires over 2023, Lahaina, Maui. Those are some very anomalous forest fires over there that not forests, there was no forest there. There was just small amounts of grass, barely much to even burn. Wasn't even showing lots of burnt grass over there. Very few trees. And yet somehow high winds and massive enough fire to melt auto glass. But where is the actual material to do that? We'll go into Maui at some point in the future. But anyway, this is a chart to look at. Look at this. This is the point of this. This is a meme to help your life become more wonderful. It's your circles of influence to quiet overthinking. Just that you stay in the focus, your actions, your focus, your thoughts, your reactions, your choices. Stay in the center. And when you have your center tended to, move to the next circle out to things that promote your health, family, friends, atmosphere, relationships, work, environment, your success, and your future. Just and then consider there's some things you will never have influence or control over, such as, for the most part, unless you build yourself an actual Wilhelm Reich cloudbuster, you're not going to be altering the weather. For the most part, you're never going to alter the economy. You can just protect your wealth from the changes to the greater economies. And that's a different question. There's not one economy. There's actually economia. Economia means the household. That's that was a Greek word, and they turned it to mean the values and actual wealth holding and wealth movement inside of the household, to the wealth movement between households, to the wealth movements within an entire nation, to the wealth movements between nations. All of the economies, they're economies, not economy, and you have no control over that. And you have no control over who hates you on social media or other people's opinions or the keyboard warriors or a stranger's behavior. You have no control over that. You have control over yourself. Meanwhile, remember, the red pill is only an entryway into seeing deeper and wider. So I love this one. It's the pyramid of the pills, the pill pyramid. And I like to start at the bottom with the blue pill. The bottom one, the blue pill, is really just trust in official stories and mainstream media. The government means well, and doctors mostly just help people. You can believe whatever you're taught in public schools, and college degrees make you smart. These people rarely study critical thinking and usually build self esteem by keeping the same conclusions for decades or their whole life. Now, the red pill symbolizes a person who found alternative sources, and with it came different stories, evidence to support some radically different theories, ideas, and notions. Distrust of mainstream narratives can be strong after taking one red pill, and similar to the blue pill consumer, the majority of red pill aficionados might conclude that they have found the truth because that's replacing one aspect of desiring for certainty with another aspect of desiring certainty. Basically, it's that same clenching for certainty. This can happen too often. They'll go from trusting the government to I distrust all the government. I only trust Infowars and Alex Jones. They have found the truth about the climate change corruption and media and healthcare and finances, the law, the bar, the Illuminati, etc. So be caution of taking those red pills and clenching uncertainty, especially caution by having anger at the same time as your red pill. And by the way, there's a lot of people in the blue pill community, those folks who were full on in the No Kings marching and the No Kings movement. They were doing all of that, protesting for the No Kings. They are fully blue pilled, and they had certainly a bunch of anger to express. Moving on, the black pill person is one of the saddest stories here. They not only believe many of the same stories as the consumer of red pills, they have also lost all hope that good things will happen or hope that they have agency or power to make a better reality. Nihilism dominates their minds, and many black pill consumers have sad lives and leave their families and friends deeply concerned for them. The white pill consumer has moved through the red pill world and has either skipped the black pill perspective or completely integrated the idea of agency and power into their life while acknowledging that truly terrifying and amazing things may indeed be happening, but in the end, it's all just going to work out and be okay. And then there's the clear pill. They've moved into a state of advanced relaxation regarding research and reality awareness. The map of reality they have forged allows them to simply accept what they perceive, speculate on what might be, and accept it all as being just the way it is. I put a little cartoon in here. Oh yeah, first reach enlightenment right here, people. Woo, baby, eat my dust, ladies. And it shows the Buddhist who just achieved enlightenment and is celebrating. Above all these pill consumers is the ideal made you think avatar. My ideal consumer of this infotainment channel, they just see this all as fucking hilarious. And now let's go back to our regularly scheduled climate hoax. So, at the top, we have got Al Gore, Prince Harry, Greta Thunberg. We got Michael Mann, Leonardo DiCaprio, Barack Obama, King Charles, all of them saying, we need to spend all of your money on the climate emergency to save the world. And then we have all of these various scientists and other investigators into the reality of the evidence that's shown. They all say there is no climate emergency, period. End of story. Freeman Dyson, Bill Kinnenmuth, Judith Curry, climatologist, Ivar Giver, Jack Schmidt, Richard Lindzen, I definitely heard his presentations. Susan Crockford, Franco Prodi, Will Happer, Renato Angela Ricci, Gianluca Ilamont, Bjorn Landmund, Ian Plimer, Michael Schellenberger. There's one of the more famous names. So who would you go and trust? I would for sure trust investigators like Tony Heller. I'd say, Tony, what's going on? Show me the data. Show me the NOAA evidence. Show me the NOAA tampering evidence. You can for sure go to diverse information sources and see what's going on with climate across the millennia and recently. These are people who look into the stuff, but keep this in mind. We have 27 major companies control the military industrial complex. We have 30 companies control the entire medical industry. We have 10 companies controlling the food supply and 6 companies controlling the flow of information, possibly less. And above and beyond all of that, we have 3 big companies, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, who have controlling interests in all of them. So, regarding sources of information, please keep in mind that the big money controls the militaries of the world. Some of the biggest known sources of pollution come from military actions. The medical industry will hurt you if you let them, stopping you from watching the show because you're too doped out on psychiatric meds and you can't think straight. We have 10 major food companies that will poison you and make you sick and unable to consider deep topics like electromagnetic and chemical alterations that modify weather patterns. We have 6 big companies that control the bulk of all media, and if you trust in them, you won't know much about anything useful and you will be perpetually fearful, angry at people who are mostly irrelevant to your life, and incapable of remembering what is important for having a meaningful and satisfying life, such as eggs and rare ribeye steaks, like this. It's a beautiful plate of ribeye steak with some fried eggs. So, by the way, speaking of media manipulation, here's the post that got a little traction over on the Hyper Shadow Band Facebook. 85 reactions as it shows to everyone else and regular plebs. And here it is seen on my professional dashboard with 269 reactions. What is real? Who knows? Some Facebook bots might know the answer to that one. I don't know. But yeah, the post was relatively large engagement. What is that? It says 7,129 views, large for someone like me. And go back to your center, the circle of control, take a breath, remember your breath work, breathe with Sandy over on YouTube, just do some breath work. I did some before this show, highly recommend it. So remember, focus on your circle of control mostly. Once you are loving your reality, then you can consider your circle of influence and work on that. Don't spend too much time thinking about your circle of concern until you are faced with real problems that require real solutions now and down the line. This does not include weather modification tech employed by the ruling class and their toadies. So, you will never know all sides to the truth, but you will have a better time if you can navigate using a more accurate map of reality. Once again, going back to this vision, we got this cylinder with the projected light the light's projecting from one side, making it look like a rectangle. And then there's the arrow saying, this is the truth. The projected light coming from the other angle, showing a circle. And then the shadow is a circle saying, this is true. And then you can see the 3D reality. It's a cylinder. This is the truth. So please consider this before talking and typing. You or someone you know may be unknowingly regurgitating passively absorbed CIA propaganda. Ask yourself, have I researched this topic and formed views independently, or have I allowed implanted media narratives to fester unexamined in my psyche? It's good to stop and think of that. So consider going to madeyouthink.com, MADEYATHINK, because I'd love to see more people go there. Get a mosaic, and while you're at it, the mosaic comes with all these beautiful memes, some of them used in the presentation here. Finally, always remember, life isn't fair. Till next time.
Made you think.